Hi everybody, this is Professor Nugent and welcome to the overview of the drugstore case where we're going to look at 50,000 records for a CVS. Now, the first thing we do in the instructions is ask to create some information in 3 columns. So let me show you how to do that. But first I see here the data is kind of messy. So the first thing I want to do is I want to resize these columns. So I'm going to double click. Let me see what I did there. If I'm in this, click on this corner box and then double click when the cursor turns into these double arrows, and I can automatically resize these columns. I'm going to make this just a little bigger. I'm going to make these 2 columns just small because I want to showcase the other columns right now that we're going to be creating. Also, what's messy here is the title row is very nondescript. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to put some borders around it so they look like titles. I'm going to put a very light color in the background. I'm going to wrap the text. And for some columns, we could probably make them smaller by wrapping the text. Everything else looks okay, and then I'm going to center. Okay, so those titles look a lot better now. I could also, it doesn't hurt to put a bold on them to make them stand out a little bit. So now ship to date. To create this, days to ship. So this is the date of the order and the ship date. So if I simply just subtract the ship date from the order date and turn this into a number, this is the number of days to ship. And I'll double click that down. So I did there is I did a fast fill. So if you don't know your fast fill or your shortcut keys, you can't easily get around the spreadsheet. So make sure you brush up on those commands. Profit margin, I'm going to take my profit margin, I'm going to divide by my revenue, and I'm going to change this to a percentage. And I'm going to fast fill that down. When the white plus turns to a black plus, I double click the fast fill. Now for year, this is going to be the year. If I go back here, it says to use the ship date to calculate the year. So I'm going to use the equal year formula. And I'm going to highlight the ship date. Because what this means is you really can't count it as a sale until it's actually shipped. So the order is placed here, but until the product's actually shipped, that's when you can recognize the revenue. So that's why we're using the ship date as the revenue. I'm going to fast fill that. Okay, so I have all my columns set up. I noticed here that I have these all these columns here are currency, but they're not showing currency. So I'm going to put a currency in there, and I'm going to get rid of the change, and I'm going to resize these fields. Okay. Now, currency should always be currency. Units should always be in units. I'm going to put a comma there to make that look a little bit better. And this, I could shrink this column, doesn't need to be so big. And now I have a nice, a much better looking size here. Now also, you see, if I go like this, I lose the top row. That's why a gradable element of every case is that we refreeze the top row, so no matter where we are, we see that. Okay. I'm not going to put totals in here because we're going to be using pivot tables for the rest of this. So we don't actually need to total anything up in here. We could leave it like this. But I do need to set a print range. So I'm going to highlight the entire area by hitting Command A or Control A. Page layout, I'm going to set the print area. I'm going to page setup, and I'm going to adjust it. Say down to 60%. I'm going to play with the margins a little bit, maybe. Put a header and a footer in. Let's have the title as the header and the page number as the footer. And the rows to repeat at the top. We're going to repeat this row at the top. Okay. So now I'm going to hit OK on this. And then I can look at, down here is my print preview. And I'm going to look at that. And I see that one column, I have one column over here, which is very messy. So I'm just going to go to my page setup, and I'm going to shrink it to 55%. Now I have all the columns on one page, and multiple pages, and they all have the right header. Okay, so all my print range is good. Go back to the grid display. So I just got that out of the way. Just a couple things I need to do the spreadsheet properly. And the reason we set up the print ranges is because we don't want our boss to click print on this and have 70,000 pages print out because we didn't set a proper print range. So we always want to respect the end user who's going to receive the spreadsheet by setting up the print ranges. Okay, let's go back to the memo. So we did our first 3 steps, these first 3 columns. Now I'm going to have to use a pivot table by revenues and profits for region, country, and type. Sales type, total sales, this should be revenues by sales channel. Okay, and which year has the most revenues? What is the average revenue per month? All right, so let's go over here. I'm going to highlight the area, insert pivot table. And I'm going to rename this pivot table or pivot T. And I'm also, while I'm here, I might as well create the executive summary, move that to the front. Remember, the executive summary should always be the first tab, so always get in the habit of doing that. So let's go back to the pivot table, and we want to have region, country, type by revenue. Okay, so region, we'll put the region over here in rows, and then we want total revenue. Okay, so now I got total revenue, and I want this column to be, let me make this bigger so you can see it. This should be, since it's revenue, this should be in currency. And we're just assuming everything's converted to dollars at this point. Okay, so now I'm going to create another page here. And I'm going to say results. So this way I can copy this and put it on my results page. And I'm going to rename this region. Okay, I'm going to move over here, and then they want us to do it by country and type. So now I can easily just go here, put in country, remove region. So now I have my country. Just going to highlight this, copy, put this on the results page. And now I want to do item type. And put this over in the row column. So now I have my type, which I guess is product type. Put that in results. I'll throw that over here. Or maybe better, I'll put it down here. Okay, let's go back up here. Delete that. Okay. Now, let's see. Type. Total revenues by sales channel. Okay, so this actually says which region has the most revenues, which has country and type. So what I could do is in the results, I can go hit this little down arrow, and I can sort by sum of revenues descending. So now, and then what I'll do is I'll just highlight this top position here as being the one with the most. And I can go over here, do the same thing for revenue, descending, and now we have the country with the most revenue. All right, so going back to the memo, that was easy enough to, so I might as well just get all the information if I'm looking for the most. By country here, total revenues by sales channel. So we want to now go to sales channel. Put that there. Copy that. Put that in the results. I'm just keeping a record of all the different uses of the pivot table I've been doing. Which year has the most revenues? Okay, so here we want to go to a year. Let's unclick the sales channel. So now I have years, And again, copy this, go down to results, put in years, and you should always relabel this. So the row label, take this year, and then you can always, then you do your sort by revenue, descending, and then we have the year with the most revenue. Okay. And what are the average revenues per month for all years combined? Okay. So this would be a little bit more what we do for, we'd want year and then we would want month. So we'd have to go back in and create month as a field in the pivot table. And then we could put both of those records in to calculate that. Saying, what is the average revenues per month for all years combined? Hint, add up all revenues for May months and divide by the number of years. Okay. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go back to the sales results, make a new column here. I don't know why that column is so big. Make a new column here. We're going to call this, I'm just going to copy this over so I keep all the formatting. I'm just going to call this month. I'm going to go equal ship date month. Actually, no. Equal month. Click on ship date, close parentheses. Now I have the number. So that corresponds to the month. Okay, so now month is there. I'm going to re-highlight this whole area and then insert another pivot table. So here, like that. So here I'm going to call this month pivot table. And let me just, so now I have month in there. So they want us to do revenue, total revenue, by year and month. Okay. Let's switch these, see if that makes a difference. Month and year. Okay, so now you have that, that's better. So now for here are all my Januaries together. And let's see. Okay, so we have all the Januaries together, and I could just take, what's the count? If I scroll over this, I see that the count is 8. So I could just take this divided by 8 to get the average. And I should make both of these currency. Take away the zeros. Make it bigger so you can see. So now we have, these are the months, January, February, March, and then I did the average here. I don't think I can copy and paste this so easily because it's just going to be the same number. I'd have to recreate it for every month. So for every month you would have to divide by 8 here to get the average, and you can just relabel this monthly average. Okay, so there's just some, and I'll put this next to the pivot table here. So in the memo, we did everything from region. Now we do the same process, but now for profits. So the same, we're going to use profits instead of revenues. So when we go to the pivot table, we would select total profit. For this section, I'm not going to do it because you just saw me walk through all the sales. And then create a series of charts to display this information, create an executive summary for an analysis of the revenues and profits. Okay. So by now you should know how to easily create charts You can create pivot charts or create other types of charts. So when you write the executive summary up, you should summarize everything I asked in these areas, or you could at least you can even move these results. Actually, you need to have all these results. But when I say, top region, top country, you can bring that. You want to summarize that in the executive summary over here. Everything that's talked about in the memo, but also in the executive summary, very importantly, is that you want to do the financial analysis, and you want to talk about, in the essay form, state what you discovered about sales and profits. You're also free in the pivot table, in these pivot tables, you're also free to put in new ideas or new results that you may want to create, new combinations of pivots that you think might be useful. For example, I could go to the pivot table and say, this wasn't asked for, but it might be interesting to know by country, take away year, by country, which, and then we look at, maybe we'll look at, item type. So by country and item type, that could be an interesting display. And then we can kind of see, or maybe we want to look at it this way. We want to look at item type and then country. So that for baby food, we could say which country is selling the most baby food, which country is selling the least baby food. And this could be, you could sort this descending by country. Let's do revenue descending. So we can see who has the best sales, who has the least sales. So part of the recommendation might be, we're not selling a lot of baby food in Costa Rica, that maybe we could increase this, or maybe it's just a factor of population. So these are just things you can play around with and adjust. So when you're doing the executive summary, you're going to hopefully give me more than the basics, what I'm asking for. You can kind of play around, do some more analysis in these pivot tables, then write up a very interesting financial analysis, and then a recommendation. So the recommendation should be things that the company can do to improve, suggestions to improve their sales, suggestions to improve their product mix, recommendation based on maybe there's some countries that are just very low sales, they should stop selling entirely, or maybe there's some countries you notice that they're not selling to at all. So these are all things that can be written up in the recommendations. So in the recommendations, it's some common sense business knowledge, plus just some information that you've put together from using this pivot table. And why it's important to learn and utilize pivot tables, because this is a very common assignment you'll be given if you work for an investment bank, if you work for a regular bank, if you work for a financial institution, if you work for an investment company, if you work for a corporation. They'll probably give you large data sets and then expect you to extract information about averages and totals by product, by date, by region, by sales division, and pivot tables are the most effective way to get that information. So that's why this is really critical to understand this for your future. Okay, so I hope you found this